Okay, we're good to go.
All right, I'd like to call to order the November 12th, 2020 Planning Board meeting. Ms. Tanya, have you had opportunity to do the roll call yet?
I have, I've got that.
All right, that brings us to approval of minutes. Has everybody looked over everything?
Can we do them individually?
Sure. Has anybody looked over the September 10th Planning Board minutes?
I have.
Okay. Is everything in order?
This is Andrea Cheek. I have.
A motion to approve. Bill Poe.
Second, Eric.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is everybody in favor?
Aye. Bill
Aye.
Poe.
Vaughn Willoughby, aye.
Ashley Harris, aye.
Gene Brooks, aye.
All right. Well, I'm
So we're going
assuming,
to say unanimous on that unless somebody is in nay.
okay, then I'm assuming that one carries. Miss Tanya, your screen has went to absolutely nothing. It ain't much wider than a straw.
Yeah, that's it.
That's not good.
I thought it was me.
That's what it looks like.
Well, so did that change anything?
No, ma'am, it still looks mighty thin.
Give me just a minute. Let me figure out why it's doing that.
Tanya, maybe if you stop your share and then reshare, that might help.
Yeah, we're having a problem with sharing tonight because Taylor had an issue with it too. Let's see.
Gotta learn to share.
We're not sharing well. That's right. Did that do it?
No, ma'am.
What if you hit?
Wonderful.
Oh, there
Okay,
we go.
I'm gonna stop the share and then we'll start it again. All right. Taylor is trying to give you the share.
Well, okay, let me see.
Tanya, if you need me to try to share something, I can.
You don't have it yet, unfortunately, Jake. Did it work?
There you go.
That's better. That's even better.
Is that it?
All right,
Yeah,
well,
you
yes.
got it.
We will keep it just like that then.
All right, Miss Tanya, looks like Amy is waiting to be admitted.
Oh, Lord, now I got to get back to that screen. I'll tell you, I got like 10 screens where I normally have one.
You're doing great.
Okay. There we go. We got Amy in.
Awesome. All right, that brings us to approval of planning board minutes for September 24th. Has everybody had an opportunity to take a look, see at that?
Motion to approve, Vaughn Willoughby.
Second, Gene Brooks.
Motion and a second. Everybody okay with that?
Bill Poe, A.
Vaughn Willoughby, aye.
Ashley Harris, aye.
Andrea Cheek, aye.
Eric McPherson, aye.
Gene Brooks, aye.
Miss Tanya, we're going to say it's approved.
Unanimous. Okay.
All right, and that brings us to October 15th, 2020. Everybody had opportunity to review those?
Gene Brooks, I recommend approving the minutes. I'll make a motion.
I second Andrea Cheek.
Anyone opposed? Ms. Tanya, I'm gonna take it, motion carried.
Thank you. I'll write that as unanimous.
Tanya, this is Tim Woody. I've abstained from voting since I wasn't part of this board at that time.
That's right, Tim. That's exactly right. We have several members' applications in tonight, so you are one of those. Y'all are welcome to be a part, but you wouldn't be able to vote.
Tanya, we're good with the minutes?
We are great with the minutes.
All right, I'm assuming that brings us to public comments. Do you have anything?
Well, I do have quite a few public comments that are actually based off the land development plan. So you let me know if you want me to read those now or when we get to that on the agenda.
Don't you think it'd probably be best if we waited till we got to that point?
That is perfectly fine.
Let's do that then. So now that brings us to board commissioners' responses, whatever that means.
So y'all don't have any responses because we didn't have any public comment yet.
Fair enough. Then brings us to new business.
Okay, so for new business, we have a couple different items for you, Ray, starting with the planning board appointments and reappointments.
Okay. Then I'll tell you what, let's do this. We're going to be looking over the land use plan tonight as well, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Me personally, myself, I've had a little bit of conversation with some of the others. And I believe the general consensus that I'm seeing is we're going to take care of the reappointments tonight. And the new appointments, we're going to table till our January meeting. So the reason being is because of the time constraints and how long it's going to take us on the land use plan. It will not afford the new applicants an opportunity for us to have a thorough, I guess, interview, I guess is what we're saying.
So I guess we'll just need a motion and a second to table the planning board membership applications, item number 2 under new business.
This is Vaughn Willoughby. I'd make a motion that we table the new appointments until the January meeting. And as a part of that other, I would like to go ahead and make a motion as part of this motion that we
Do one at a time.
reappointment of Ray Cobb and Arthur Hall.
So I appreciate that, Vaughn. I think we want to handle them in 2 separate motions. Would that be better, Ray?
I believe it would.
Okay.
I'd like to amend my motion to just table the new appointments until the January meeting.
Okay.
Bill
This is
Poe,
Gene
I'd
Brooks,
second- Yeah, I'd second that.
Okay.
Who did that second? I didn't quite get all that.
Mr. Poe.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
We have a motion and a second. Anyone? Well, all those in favor?
Andrea,
Gene Brooks, aye.
Bill Poe,
We could
aye.
do it a little simpler if there's any nays, if y'all could just speak up.
I was thinking that myself.
Yeah, I think that'd probably be easier.
I like that idea. Is anyone, any nays in the crowd? Motion carries, Miss Tanya.
Okay, so we have several applicants on here tonight. We appreciate everybody's interest. This is a board that thinks a lot about membership and spends a lot of time with this on a normal yearly basis. Fortunately for us, we have a lot going on in the county, and they have a big task tonight to take on the land development plan update and approval of that to send to commissioners as a pretty urgent matter. So the board has decided to give you all the time that you should be allotted in our January meeting, and that will be January 14th, and that's a 7 o'clock meeting, also expected to be on Zoom. what we can do is get back in touch with you all, reach out with you all before that meeting in January, and make sure everybody can be there and give you the details of everything with the Zoom call. We do appreciate everybody's interest tonight and really look forward to hearing from you all in January.
Thank
Ray,
you.
is there anything else for that?
I believe we're okay.
So from here, I'm going to push you all, the applicants, out into the waiting room. If you all want to watch the meeting, we do have that out on YouTube right now. It's on the website. You can click the link to do that. But I'm going to keep the board members in the meeting so they can vote. And I'll push you all out to the waiting room. So don't feel like I'm kicking you out. I'm just doing it for people to cover the business.
Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you all. So Ray, I think we're good to move to item number 3.
Okay, you want to scroll us down a little bit?
Hold on a minute. Don't we need to
Yeah, I have a question.
go back to number 1?
Oh, that's right. I apologize, y'all. I'm moving down the paper.
Hey, when the minutes are retyped, is it supposed to say planning board has 2 members for reappointment instead of 1?
You're correct. I will get that straight.
Okay. Hey, this is Gene Brooks. I make a motion that we reappoint Mr. Ray Cobb and Mr. Arthur Hall to the planning board.
This is Bill Poe. I second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Let's move on to item 3, please.
Okay, so item number 3 is the land development plan. You all at the October 15th meeting got a pretty in-depth presentation from Jake from our Stewart group. Jake is with us tonight. First, though, I wanted Ben to talk to us a little bit about what we're here to do with the plan and kind of what our goals are. Since we've been doing this for about a year, I wanted him to kind of give y'all, from a legal perspective, where we're at.
This is Ben. I think at this point, probably what needs to happen is that the matter that has been noticed and that is open for hearing is the approval of the plan. I know that there's been a lot of discussions about some of the recommendations that are in the plan, but we really can't be discussing those until the plan itself is approved and official by the commissioners. One of the things that you have to have in order to make a recommendation is you have to have a statement of plan consistency, where you determine if a proposed action is either consistent or inconsistent with the plan, and we can't do that till we have an approved plan. So at this point, I think the vote and the discussion needs to be focused more on what the plan contains and how the wording of the plan itself, rather than any action items that might come about after it gets approved.
Question. I have a question.
Yes, sir.
This is
Yeah.
Vaughn. Two questions. Basically, what you're saying is we need to approve the 81-page document or not before we could even implement any plan A, B, or C, or any part of that. Is that correct?
That's correct, because before you can send anything to the commissioners, the law requires you to have that statement of plan consistency. And if we don't have a plan, we can't be consistent with it.
Well, I agree with that. My other question is this the time we should hear those public comments?
That's a question for Ray or Tanya. That's not a legal issue.
I understand. I just didn't know if that was.
Ms.
Ray,
Tanya,
that's up to you. We've got a presentation from Jake as well to kind of give an update of some of the review comments that we've gotten from legal and from administration and all that. So it depends on what order y'all want to hear everything in.
Tanya, if you want to go ahead and do the public comments, and then I'll go and I'll talk a little bit more, about your options tonight. You don't have to necessarily approve the plan as is. You can approve it with some changes, but we just want to make sure that that's the focus. Is let's change what the plan says if we want to with approval, but we can't really jump to what may happen, what we really want to happen in a couple weeks or a couple months.
This is Bill Poe. So Jake, so the plan where you have number 3, the visions of either business as usual, managed growth, or the ARC.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is all part of that plan. Is it something tonight that we determine which vision we're going with?
Yeah, I'll go over that a little bit. It's the future land use map is kind of mostly the ARC, but with a little bit of the managed growth sprinkled in, based on kind of that was what the preference of folks was. So the future land use plan is actually a blend of those different options.
Okay.
Ton, you want to read the public comments?
Okay, Ray, are you ready for me to go ahead and read these?
Yes, ma'am. Go right ahead.
Okay. I've gotten them up so y'all can go along with me, but Gary Ulickney off of Soapstone Trail in Snow Camp. He says, first, I would like to thank those individuals, especially our planning director, for the efforts they put into developing this comprehensive plan. I believe that the plan is well thought out and recognizes the geographical and cultural diversity of the county. The plan provides for several options, and I strongly support option A, as do over 70% of the respondents to the survey. This plan addresses the overwhelming support for maintaining our rural and agricultural way of life while allowing well thought out development that fits within the culture and heritage of the county. I wholeheartedly support the small area plan for Snow Camp. As you know, a flawed ordinance and poor planning permitted an intrusive heavy industrial quarry to be approved that will dramatically change the lifestyle in our peaceful farming community. I do not want this mistake to be an opening for turning our community into a heavy industrial center. The small area plan will allow the citizens of our community to determine what and how much development is appropriate and to do this in a timely fashion. Others have advocated for county-wide zoning, which could take years to develop, resulting in the continuance of a shotgun approach to land development. The citizens of Snow Camp have spoken and are overwhelmingly supportive of controlling their own destiny. This small area plan could then serve as a template for other areas of the county eventually have countywide zoning. Thanks again for developing this plan, and as county officials, I hope you will follow your duty and listen to the citizens and approve option A in a Snow Camp small area plan. Thank you, Gary Lickney, PhD, President and CEO, GRU Healthcare, and then he has his PO for Snow Camp as well. Person number 2, Ron Spinhaven, 2709 Quakenbush Road, Snow Camp. I'm writing to the planning board to express my emphatic support for a small area development plan for the Snow Camp, Newland Township area. I specifically support the proposed small area plan for Snow Camp and option A, protection within 6 months. As a Snow Camp resident, I have already seen our community fall victim to the lack of oversight and due process by the commissioners and a contested approval of a permit to an unscrupulous entity for the purpose of blasting mining materials containing silicate particles unknown carcinogen. Waiting for a comprehensive countywide zoning plan could take years, if ever. Our Snow Camp community needs action now. In fact, you might say we needed action 2 years in the past. Thank you for all your effort you have put into this matter. Ron Spinhaven, Quakenbush Road, Snow Camp. Person number 3 was Timothy J. Mulrooney, I believe, senior PhD, 9065 White House Court, Snow Camp. We support the proposed small area plan for Snow Camp. It is important to keep this area pollution-free to maintain the quality of life in Snow Camp. We would also recommend option A for the Snow Camp small area plan. We have moved here for the rural, beautiful country living that Snow Camp provides. allowing large industrial projects will take away the rural farm atmosphere of Snow Camp. Sincerely, Timothy Mulrooney, Senior PhD, 9065 White House Court, Snow Camp. Next is Laura Johnson, 3785 Onondaga Trail, Snow Camp. We support the proposed small area plan for Snow Camp. It is important to keep this area pollution free to maintain the quality of life in Snow Camp. We would also recommend option A for Snow Camp small area plan. We have moved here for rural, beautiful country living that Snow Camp provides. Allowing large industrial projects will take away the rural farm atmosphere of Snow Camp. Sincerely, Timothy Mulrooney. Jane Lee Hicks at 1730 Quakenbush Road. My name is Jane Lee Hicks, and I moved to Snow Camp just 4 years ago when I fell in love with this tranquil rural community. In the past 2 years, since the proposed mine made its controversial entrance into our neighborhood, I've discovered many of my neighbors share my love for this community. We were shattered when we envisioned the impact of what a heavy industrial mining operation would mean to the air and water quality for our homes, not to mention the fear of a deadly explosion from the Colonial Pipeline that runs through the mining site in many of our properties. The county commissioners shared our pain as we struggle with a defective heavy industrial development ordinance that provided no opportunity for public notification, comment, or appeal for the impacts of this unwanted and unnecessary heavy industry. In response to our anguish, the commissioners have somewhat tightened the ordinance and ordered a thorough review of possible land development controls, including the small area development plan specifically for Snow Camp. We are less than 15 miles from two North Carolina mega sites comprising more than 3,300 acres, and without the protection of the small area development proposal, we are sitting duck for additional noxious heavy industrial development. Our community needs the immediate protection provided by option A, small area development plan. By selecting option A, you in no way prevent a countywide plan to be voted on in the future. Our community is asking you to hear our plea and to recommend option A to the commissioners. Many thanks, Jane Lee Hicks, 1730 Quakenbush Road. Okay, that is all the public comment I have. Now, Jake does have a presentation or some information to provide to you all as well. Jake, can you share your screen now? There we go.
Yeah, can y'all see it now?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I have a few slides. I just kind of want to go over a couple things, reiterate the overview of the project, hit on some goals and recommendations, some plan changes that we made in response to some comments and some changes for consideration, and really just talk about next steps and your options, and then get into the discussion. Just to reiterate, the land development plan and small area plan vision is meant to promote the public health and safety and welfare of the county citizens. It's meant to guide and manage growth and change and strengthen different communities within the county, protect property values and investments, and improve quality of life for residents and attract and retain businesses. So where we are in the adoption phase of the plan. And we'll talk more about kind of the next steps there. One of the big takeaways, besides the support for one of the scenarios, the agricultural and rural character scenario that we put forward as options, is there is just a lot of support for additional measures to manage growth in high impact development throughout the county. Especially in the Southwest. This is the county as a whole numbers, and there's even more support in the Southwest. The plan is available at www.alamancecountyplan.com. It has been for about 2 months now, at least. It kind of outlines different goals and then has recommendations in the plan. One of the big recommendations comes in the form of a future land use map. So this map is really meant to guide growth and development in the future, and guide county policies and standards in the future. So what this land use plan does is there's different colored areas that represent different character areas. It there's a couple things it's trying to do is focus growth near municipalities in municipal growth areas, the orange areas. So that includes town boundaries, city boundaries, and also the extraterritorial jurisdictions. And then there's also some suburban transition areas where growth is encouraged in the form of residential development. A lot of it already has occurred in these areas, but there's significant room for more growth there. And then it also has defined opportunities for commercial and employment uses in the form of employment centers, the purple areas, the rural centers, which are kind of the red, pink areas, and also recognizing the unique features that you have in the county, the mill villages along the haul. The other thing that this land use plan really emphasizes, and it works with a lot of the policy recommendations, is protection of rural character in the less developed areas and decrease development pressure in agricultural areas. So those light green areas and the dark green areas are really meant to kind of preserve the character of place there. And this map and the future land use map was created after we asked a lot of folks through survey number 2 what their preferred land use scenario was. And if you recall from the public comment, there was a big amount of support for that agricultural and rural character scenario that really focused on protecting those rural areas and agricultural operations in the county. There was also some support for the managed growth scenario, so some of those ideas were incorporated as well. A couple other big recommendations just really around agricultural and residential development, so protecting and promoting agriculture, discouraging higher density, larger scale subdivisions in rural residential and agricultural areas, and design requirements for new neighborhoods to reduce impacts on ag operations and promotion of agriculture in the county. I do want to note that bona fide farms and agricultural operations are actually exempt from zoning. The county has subdivision regulations, but without updates to the subdivision regulations and or some form of zoning, farms are likely to be impacted by projected residential development and also potential non-residential development. And that's really the focus of these land use policies that we have in this document, is really to protect agriculture. And agriculture is largely exempt from the land use regulations. It's really about the other things that could come in to rural areas and conflict with ag. Updating subdivision regulations and or new zoning districts is suggested. You actually currently allow pretty small lots and pretty dense development in terms of residential development, and also a lot of forms of non-residential development in areas of the county. And updating subdivision regulations could help. It could increase base lot size or increase open space requirements and make subdivisions fit a little bit better in rural areas. You could do things like require buffers or tree save or frontage treatments or landscaping in order to kind of reduce impacts in the form of development. Subdivision regulations can really help with the form of development. You would need to implement some form of zoning if you want to restrict certain uses in certain areas, and we get into that more in the plan. The Snow Camp Small Area Plan, this is a part of the land development plan. What we were really focusing on in this was to identify what makes the snow camp area unique, what is the character of the community, and then establishing policy recommendations and guidelines to manage growth and protect that character. There's a lot of history here, a lot of agriculture, and those are some of the focuses of the recommendations. This is just a snapshot of the future land use plan in the snow camp area. But in the Snow Camp Small Area Plan, we go into a little bit more detail about how to implement the future land use plan. And we talk about some options related to implementing zoning. Just like there's an agricultural area on the future land use map, there could be a zoning district that represents this ag area. And also the rural residential area, the lighter green area, there could be a zoning district that represents that. Agricultural areas where we would want the least amount of density in new development. We would also want to restrict heavy industrial uses there. In the rural residential area, we would also have lower density development than is currently allowed. But with both of these, we want to balance land use controls with property owner rights, and we do want to allow some residential development, and we do suggest a rural cluster option that allows for slightly more density if you do good design. But again, we're trying to reduce conflicts with agriculture, and you can tell that, even based on the current regulations versus our rural cluster option, if there was agricultural operations to the north or south, you would have a lot less conflicts with the type of development we're encouraging here. The rural center areas are really meant to be small scale commercial development. And we looked at existing building footprints to understand, how big is appropriate for the area. And keep in mind that the recommendations in here, talking about different requirements and restrictions on size of buildings would not apply to anything agricultural related as well. There also may be a need for another zoning district to acknowledge existing industrial uses, and that could be solar farms or other timber operations, that sort of thing. The implementation options that are outlined in the plan, there's option A, B, and C, and these are just options at this point. We are suggesting that we leave the options in the plan or modify them in some form or fashion, and then it would be a planning board and the board of commissioners ultimately would decide how to proceed and implement this. Option A would be implement zoning in the Southwest, at least initially, and you would have these 4 districts. The industrial district would have a special use permit process that would be required, another bar for approval that would be required for rezoning. And then with option A, it would be potentially the first of many small area plans that you could, a phased approach of expanding, doing a small area plan in another part of the county, and then deciding what kinds of zoning would be appropriate for that area. And then option B would be countywide zoning. You would need more districts, and it is a larger effort than the Southwest only. But we have heard concerns about different types of growth and development and impacts in other areas of the county in the north and other areas. And then option C would be agricultural zoning district or overlay district, and you can do that in the Southwest or countywide. Just to give you an idea of level of effort, Southwest part of the county, the Snow Camp area, greater Snow Camp area, has about 3,400 parcels, tax parcels. If you go into the county as a whole, it has about 30,000. So that gives you a sense in what level of effort would be to implement zoning countywide versus in the Snow Camp area. There's also there are other alternatives here that could address some of the current concerns in other parts of the county, and one of which would be do zoning in Snow Camp area and have your 4 districts, and then do some form of option C in other parts of the county, and that could be just in agricultural areas. And apply an agricultural zoning to protect that area, or do an ag zoning district or general rural zoning district, and something for commercial in other parts of the county, more like a more generalized or simpler approach to other areas of the county, and more detailed approach in snow camp. That's an option, but there's a number of different ways to implement this. We just wanted to outline a few in the plan, so that when the time comes, and hopefully it'll be pretty soon after this, it would be adopted. Parts of this would be implemented in some form or fashion. And this page in the document, page 78, outlines those options, option A, B, and C. And this is really, if we can't say, hey, we want to adopt the plan, and then also we want to start on option A or option B right away. That's really what Ben was talking about, is we need to focus on what's in the plan. So if we want to make adjustments to the plan text as part of a recommendation for adoption, to change option A or remove option C or whatever, this page is really what we could recommend changes to, along with the recommendation for approval. So a couple plan changes made since the draft. We made some minor changes: grammar, spelling, formatting. I changed to goal 2 to kind of clarify the wording of that. We did add a strategy under an economic development policy that just focuses or continue business recruitment on core industries. We talk about focusing on some higher wage industries as well, but you all are doing very good at recruiting some manufacturing and distribution uses, so that was added. Some changes that we've been talking about with Ben and Tanya, and we'd like to consider for inclusion in the plan before it's finalized. Just a call out box or some mention of agricultural exemptions, to be clear that the majority of these land use regulations are really applying to other forms of development, not agriculture. And that's, per state statute, agriculture is largely exempt from a lot of zoning. And we also might want to consider some other reasonable exemptions to certain zoning districts, just as we craft them. That could include, communication utilities or government uses, recreation, that sort of thing. Agritourism, this is something that staff has brought up. We wanted to have some kind of recommendation about agritourism and where and how that would be appropriate. And some of these uses are exempt from zoning, but some fall into different categories. But we want to encourage those uses to be located in rural, residential, and agricultural areas, and then also consider a performance-based approach to permitting these uses where we can. For instance, if you're going to have something that could impact your neighbors, we'd want you to have a certain property size and adequate parking and that sort of thing. C, transportation. There were some comments at the Board of Commissioners on the need to have a recommendation in the infrastructure section about transportation improvements, particularly east-west connections, north and south of the major highways. So we are suggesting adding a recommendation about studying future east-west transportation improvements in conjunction with municipalities and the Burlington-Graham Metropolitan Planning Organization. And then we did notice that there's probably a need for some minor future land use map edits in the north, just to match some partial lines. So those are the changes that we'd like you to consider. The next steps, we're at the planning board meeting before the Board of Commissioners meeting next week. So I think we would like to move into discussion at this point, but consideration of the changes suggested would be good. Discussion of additional changes needed to the plan, and then your motion options, couple there. Motion to approve the plan, motion to approve the plan with changes suggested, or in addition to any other additional changes that you all would like to see. That could be part of that motion. And that's all I got for a presentation.
Ray, that's all staff has for tonight, so it is back to you for however y'all want to do the rest.
Okay. Does anybody have any changes to what Jacob has suggested?
I have a couple of
Hey,
questions.
Ray, this is, okay, go ahead, Will.
The ag overlay, does it address the subdivision changes in those couple of pictures you showed, those current subdivision requirement, then it showed with the changes, what the density of the lots being less, the lots would be larger, the lot size would be larger. Does that address that in that if you were to add the ag overlay, does that address that issue?
Yes, it could, depending on how you write that ag overlay district. It could certainly talk about the form of future residential development. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, this is Gene. I got a question for Jake. Refresh my memory. When you said when you started this, you had all these different areas that were agriculture or whatever, and you made the comment in passing that several of the areas that were agriculture or wooded or whatever when you started this are no longer. Do you remember that comment?
It wasn't agriculture. It was, we were talking about the natural heritage natural areas. So those
Okay.
are the areas in the county that have been identified as being regionally significant, of state significance, the best intact forests and habitat in the region and the state. And you had a number, I think you have like 30 of those or 20 in the county, but 2 or 3 of them have been impacted by either development or logging or something in the last couple of years and have actually gone off the list.
Okay. Do you know what areas they were in of the county off the top of your head?
I do have it written down somewhere. I think one of them was on the south side of Cane Creek Mountains. Another one was somewhere else. I could have to look that up. I did have
Okay.
I had
fine.
emails exchanges with the North Carolina Wildlife Commission because they're the ones that certify that. And I can get you that information. The other big thing that we've talked about quite a bit is just loss of agricultural lands. And I did have a slide of that in the last presentation, and you all have lost 18,000 acres of agriculture in the last 15 years or so. So that's not
Okay. Do you know off the top of your head what part of the county that was in?
I think it's been probably all over. We could look into that, but it's not in one particular location.
Okay.
Imagine
that's my
a lot
point.
of it's kind of closer in, and those areas convert into subdivisions and that sort of thing. But there's probably other factors at play. Farmers aging out of working the land or of other things too.
Yeah, but that's my point. It's happening all over the county,
Mm-hmm.
not just one little area.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's why, to me, option C is the option to go with. But do we make them, and that's what I'm still confused on. Do we adopt the whole plan with all the options?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then determine later on?
Right. So this is straight from the plan, this page, and basically we wanted to lay out these options because we wanted to have this in here whenever we go to implement the plan, in a month or two, when the planning board and board consider, how to start implementing this thing, is we wanted these to be the starting point for the discussion.
Okay. I mean, I just wanted to be clear because, like I've said many times, I'm in the northern part of the county and I know what's going on down at Snow Camp. But you come out here and you can see the trees cleared and 30 some residential houses going up on like 2/3 of an acre. And the first 2 phases is like 15 houses on each side of the road. And there's more acres back there for it. So, something's got to be done for the northern part of the county as well as the southern part of the county.
Yeah.
So that's why I think something needs to be done in the entire county. We don't need to worry about one area because it's already coming out here.
Yeah, and that's why we put it. We mentioned this. That there is an option that you do the snow camp with a more detailed set of districts, and then you have some kind of overlay district that really just it's kind of like a placeholder that focuses on your agricultural areas. That says, and maybe it's the agricultural and rural residential areas on the future land use map. All that can be decided later, but that is kind of like a placeholder for making sure there's no really intense development where it doesn't need to be. I think that would be easier than doing full-on zoning, because full-on zoning, you have to kind of you should factor in commercial on the front end and that sort of thing. You don't want to make all the commercial businesses in the county non-conforming and then you have to petition for a different district, and that you might be making more enemies than friends doing that. So that's why, option A, and then with the agricultural overlay in some part of the county would be kind of like a good way to put some protections in place in the near term until you can look at different areas in more detail.
Okay, thank you.
So this is Bill Post. So basically what we're recommending to the county commissioners tonight is the overall plan, and then the county commissioners will have the public hearing Monday, and then whether they vote or don't vote on that Monday, then this comes back towards the planning board after that to hone in on whether we want to do a small area plan in Snow Camp with agriculture overlays. And I get Gene's and Ray's point about the northern side of the county. And I'm sure y'all feel for the southern part of the county too, especially with we're anticipating the NC Carolina core and that kind of growth in the future, projecting out. One thing I do know about the northern side of the county, about the watershed up there, is a lot more extensive area on watershed than it is down here in the southern part of the county. So some of that restricts overall growth up there. But yes, the whole county is under attack because, on various different fronts because of being open for so long with no zoning. So I just wanted to make that statement.
Yeah. So what would happen, if the board approves the plan or approves it, with any adjustments, then, the plan's approved. And then the real work starts, right? Implementing it. And if the board has I don't know what their process is going to be, but I suspect that they would want some input from staff and the planning board on how to proceed with implementation. I don't know, Tanya, if you want to clarify or talk about conversations you had about that, but I assume that would be appropriate.
That seems to be what they're leaning towards. You all are hearing this tonight. Board of Commissioners will hear it on Monday night. And then we will swear in 3 new board members, and then Amy's position will get replaced as well for the new board. So this new elected board will make some decisions and giving guidance to staff to move forward with whatever they feel like is appropriate. We have the small area plan here in the land development plan for Snow Camp. So that's already written. once that is approved, we take what has been written and we put some guts to it. It's kind of like we have the plans for our house. Somebody drew these things up exactly the way we want. Now we need to get the wood, the nails, the hammers, and get out and build this and write the zoning ordinance that backs this up with, this cluster development for the subdivisions. We got to look at lot size, setbacks. Do we want landscaping, parking? All these things would go into that new zoning ordinance that would cover that, or whatever the board discusses and wants to do if it's option A, B, and C. That's when we get into the real details and try to figure out what we want to do, where we're going. But we want to make sure we have these options in this land development plan, because as what Ben told you, when we come forward with these other much more detailed zoning ordinance, then we need it to make sense to the plan we've just approved. By state law, I have to provide a consistency statement with anything that comes new out of this zoning ordinance. And it needs to say we're being consistent with our land development plan. And otherwise, you can make some decisions not to be, but you have to give a darn good reason why. And why would we not be consistent with the plan that we just spend an enormous amount of time, effort, and energy on? So we want to make sure we've included all the ideas and all the possibilities of what everybody's wanting in the plan, so that when we do the details, we match what we said we were going to do long range. Our short range plan matches our long range plan.
I have a question. This is Vaughn. I have a couple of questions. So this plan, how much if we were to approve it as, just say if we decided to approve it as it's written tonight, can we go back and once it's approved, can it be changed? Can it be edited? Is that what Tanya's talking about in the writing of the zoning? Or do we need to do something tonight, like, for example, the alternative of incorporating option A and option C together? To go ahead and get this agricultural overlay and the snow camp small area plan implemented as one thing, and then with the focus being, once that's done, we move forward toward a countywide plan using the snow camp plan as a template. I mean, I'm asking, how much can we change once it's done, or do we have to make those changes tonight?
Well, there is an amendment process. I mean, you could change this plan if you all recommend it and the board approves it. I mean, we can change the plan. But I think going back to what you said, if you do want to add something to this page, like we could add a bullet that says the county could also consider doing option A and C or something like that. We could add that to this page just to document the current conversation and make sure it's in there in some form or fashion. That is an option that we could do. But the other thing that you mentioned was just what happens now. This is just the plan, and we would need to write zoning districts and implement zoning, which has a number of steps to it that have to happen after this. So, this, by approving the land development plan and the snow camp small area plan, that doesn't implement zoning automatically. The districts would have to be written. There would be a lot of procedural changes that need to be made, and the planning board would be involved in that too. Writing the zoning districts and recommending, the zoning ordinance essentially for approval by the board. I mean, that would have to go through y'all first.
For example, in the LU-2 section where it talks about the increasing lot sizes, the recommendation is to 30,000 feet, 30,000 square feet for a lot size. It doesn't say in the plan, it just says that's a recommendation. Yeah. The question is, are we saying that's it, or we're just saying it's gray to me? What are we saying? I mean, so there's a lot of
talk about different lot sizes in different areas in the plan. That recommendation, if you were going to update your subdivision regulations right now, and that's the only thing you were going to do, then that might be an appropriate, number. But we're actually calling for larger lot sizes in a lot of areas, like in the rural residential and agricultural areas. We would actually suggest larger ones, and we get into that in more detail in the snow camp part of the plan.
Okay, so that would still be up for discussion as we move forward past.
Right. Yeah. Like this doesn't set. We talk about model zoning districts and ideas for zoning districts in the plan, but that can be adjusted, and that there's more conversation that needs to be had at the planning board level, in order to kind of fine tune what those zoning districts look like.
Okay. Well, I would be in favor of us incorporating A and C together in the plan, as opposed to having them as two separate things. That's Vaughn Willoughby's recommendation.
We could either merge A and C, or we could just mention that it doesn't have to be one or the other. It could be A and C, for instance.
This Bill Poe, I like the sound of that, Jake. It sounds like then it gives maximum protections to both ends of the county. Yeah, I can see that working. Sure.
So that sounds like something that would be a good start to a conversation after this plan is approved. We'll let the new board members kind of tell us what direction they want to go in and give us a little direction from that too. But the planning board will have to kind of do a really deep study into what does A and C truly look like. If we're going to do that, what do we cover? What do we don't? Do we leave some areas unzoned that are okay to develop under the current ordinances? Those are the conversations we'll have once we get this approved, and it gives us all the nuts and bolts that we need and guidance on of options to move forward. And then we can have the discussion on piece by piece how we want to put the puzzle together.
But didn't Jake say we had to put something in there saying that we could combine them all, or combine A and C?
Yeah, you could.
In the plan?
We could do that. We don't have to do that, but we could if you want to do that, and that could just be part of your motion. Is if we approve the plan, but we want to add a mention of a potential A and C, or a combination of these options on page 79 or 78. Not a problem. That would just those additional changes that we mentioned in a motion.
Okay. Well, I'm assuming we need a motion of some sort.
All right, I'll run with it. I would recommend we make a motion that we suggest a combination of A, the snow camp small area plan, and C combined to give us more. My thought is we need more. I don't know. We need more control, or we need more say in the decisions about the development of these areas, and that the C, it's not countywide zoning necessarily like the snow camp plan, but it does give us some tools to work with as far as these agricultural lands. And let's face it, those are the lands that are being targeted for development, especially subdivision development. So I would recommend, my motion is that we combine A and C in this plan.
So Vaughn, when we're doing that, Jake put up in the very beginning the changes that have been made. Is your motion to include the changes that we had put in from legal and all of that as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And with one additional change, would be to mention that an A and C option or combining A and C would also, be an option on the table for consideration.
Yes.
This is Bill Poe. Gene, does that help on your thought processes on protecting your area as well as the southern part of the county?
Oh, that's good with me.
Okay.
I'll second. It's Gene Brooks. I'll second Vaughn's motion.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Anyone opposed? Ms. Tanya, I'm assuming the motion carries.
Well, that is remarkable. Alamance County has never come to this point of making any recommendations at all for any kind of zoning. So y'all could stand as the first board that has ever done that here.
Well, Ms. Tanya, I'm going to have to say, just from the board, forget the chairman part. I greatly do appreciate your due diligence and working on it as hard as you have to get it to where it's at.
Well, it's too important for us not to try to get it as exactly right as we can be. We don't have a crystal ball to see the future, but we're trying to get as close as we can get with the struggles we already know we've been through.
Well, man, you've done an awesome job. How about that? You and Jacob, you did an awesome job.
We appreciate that. We had our subcommittee that helped us along the way. There's a couple planning board members that sat on that, and just some just volunteers from the community that helped us out. It gave us different perspectives. So they definitely helped us, guide us, and the public itself helped guide us. So everybody seems to have a stake in the future of the plan, that has worked on it and given us comments. So we appreciate everybody's input.
Ms. Tanya, can I break in for just a minute?
Sure.
I just got a text message from Lee. He said he was in the Zoom waiting room and was trying to get in, but got kicked out.
All I show is Tim in the waiting room. I don't have Lee. I show Lee in the meeting.
Okay.
I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah, it looks like he's in.
Yeah, it totally looks like he's in. How long has it been since you got that? Because he did jump out and jump back in.
He says he's in now.
Okay, he says he's in. I mean, I just checked my phone because I was paying attention to what Jacob was saying. And he sent a text message, I don't know, probably 30 minutes ago or better.
Oh, okay. So he's in. He's good.
He says he's in.
Good.
He's been in and out.
Yeah, that's why we need to discuss infrastructure of high-speed internet in Alamance County.
Yep.
Coming from somebody that's working on a hotspot. Yeah, let's talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, this is Gene, by the way. And I know it's not on the agenda, so if I can't bring it up, please stop me. And I might want to put it on the agenda. The makeup of the Alamance County Planning Board. I know what the rules, regulations, and bylaws say. If I have a suggestion, how do I need to bring that up properly?
I guess officially the appropriate way to do that would be to mention it like in a meeting now. If the board feels good about doing something or at least having further discussion, y'all can ask that be put on the agenda for the next meeting for an official discussion and official agenda item.
Yeah, this is Ben.
Thank you.
I would say, the board can adopt its own bylaw as to how it runs the meetings and everything, the way the board conducts its own business. The board can do that itself. If you're talking about changing the composition of the board or the makeup of the board, any of that is going to have to come it doesn't have to start with the commissioners, but the commissioners are going to have to change the ordinance that creates the planning board. So I don't know how much authority the planning board really has beyond just making a recommendation.
But could we make a recommendation to the county board?
Sure.
Well, I would like to put that on the agenda if anybody would agree with me. I'm flying by the seat of my pants, so.
What exactly do you want on there? Composition of the board or bylaws?
Well, I think now, and I don't have it in front of me, about the way the membership is brought up. In my opinion, and this is my opinion, if you live in the city and pay city taxes, you should not be on the Alamance County Board because nothing we do affects them. Now, whether I'm staring off into the abyss by myself, but that is my opinion. And I would like to discuss that sometime. And I guess by the silence, I'm on my own.
Not necessarily. This is Bill Poe. So yeah, I guess okay. So I can see your point, Gene. I mean, if you're in a municipality, do we have a township that's strictly a municipality? Like a Graham or a Burlington, or do some of the townships have county and city combined?
I live in
Good point.
both. I live in the
Yeah,
city
there's
and the municipality of Burlington. So I pay taxes in both.
Well, everybody that lives in Burlington pays taxes in the county, but the rules and regulations that the county puts in place does not affect the city. So why should the city be telling the county how to do things?
Our township lines don't necessarily align with city limits. Things have changed over time. So that would have to be part of that discussion. Because right now we appoint at most 3 members per township, but city lines run all the way through some of those. So that could be a definite challenge and rework.
Okay. I just wanted.
And this has been, I know there are rules about when you have zoning, who you can put on boards, but I'm trying to look at the statutes right now to see if there is anything about composition of planning board. And I think it may take a little bit more than one meeting, so I'll have to get back to, or a little bit more than a minute to figure it out. So I have to get back to you on whether or not there's any statutory requirement for a county to have more than people outside the municipalities in it.
Okay. I just wondered.
It's a very good question, Gene. Thank you for bringing that up. It's Bill Poe.
Since I killed the meeting, I'll make a motion we adjourn.
We're not quite done yet, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. There's been some debate over our Christmas social dinner that we've been having over the last few years due to the COVID-19 crisis. So I spoke to Miss Tanya today, and she was telling me that the Historic Property Commission decided to wait to springtime to do theirs. And I would just personally myself, I would like just a little bit of input as to everybody else's opinion. I know in the past we've met up over to Cutting Board, and they would have us in a banquet room, you know, where social distancing was not necessarily a problem. So I guess a little feedback on that would be very much appreciated right now.
But if more than 10 of us are together, does that violate the governor's new
I don't think
order?
Restaurants. Because in any normal restaurant dining room, I can go ahead and tell you it's gonna be more than 10 people in there, even with social distancing.
Right.
Yes.
This is Andrea. I think it would behoove us to wait till spring.
I kind of agree with Andrea.
I'm not gonna disagree, but she stole that word behoove from Rodney.
Well,
I beg your pardon. You want to redact that, please?
um,
I have listened to Rodney Cheek say behoove for the last 20 years.
Maybe that's why we get along so well. We both like to play Scrabble.
Oh, really? Well, I tell you what, I'm not going to disagree with what you're saying. Lord have mercy, I done got to laugh so bad I done coughed. Well, I guess that settles that. Does anybody else have anything else they'd like to talk about?
I'm dropping off, but thank y'all for all your time and attention and all your careful consideration of the land development plan, and I just appreciate all the work.
What
Thank
you
you,
running
Jake.
off for? You in a
Thank
hurry
you,
to get
Jake.
home or something?
I got the kids in bed.
Uh-oh.
I'm just messing with you, buddy. You take care of those children. I'm sure they need you, man.
Thank you, Jacob.
yeah, we
Thank you, Jay.
appreciate your hard work. You did a great job with this plan. It's well done, well written, well thought out.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jake.
Y'all
Have a good evening, sir. Tanya, have you shut us off or we just changed screens or something?
When Jake went away, he took the screen away. So I don't have anything to project just yet.
Oh, well, I'll tell you what, you might want to just slip on over and call the sheriff. He done hijacked our stuff. We can't see nobody now.
Here we go. I'll put your agenda back up.
You're fine. Is everybody good?
Yes, sir.
All right.
So I have a question.
Sure.
So what happens now? This goes to the commissioners. They vote it up or vote it down. Is that kind of where we're at?
That's the impression I have, sir.
Yes.
Okay.
This Bill Poe. I think there's a public hearing on it. Is that right, Miss Tanya? Monday?
That is correct. They're taking public comment. We're actually going to hold it at the historic courthouse so that more people from the public can actually come in person if they choose to, take in written public comment. They'll also offer the opportunity that people that want to be called at the meeting can be called by the commissioners. So a lot of opportunity Monday night. I purposely set it up for Monday night so that for the most part, people are more available after 5 than they are at 9 in the morning, which is when our other one is. And that we could get people in that really wanted to come speak in person. We want to make sure it was a nighttime meeting, that all this would take place so that all the public could get as involved as they want to be.
Okay. So, Miss Tanya, what you're saying is this commissioners meeting is Monday night at the courthouse in the square.
Yes, at 7 o'clock.
All
We'll
right.
get started. Any of you all that would like to come to discuss, support any of the plan and what you all discussed tonight, more than welcome to, and represent yourselves as planning board member. They're going to have discussions similar to you all's and see where they go with it. They're going to hear what your recommendation was to them, and Jake's going to present the same thing that he presented to you all and see what they think.
Mr. Brooks,
Yes.
in all honesty, and I ain't speaking for you, I'm just giving you an opinion, okay?
Okay.
I really believe that it would behoove us, you and I at least, to be there Monday night. As well as other planning board members, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea if they would come. And that's just an opinion, that's not a requirement. I'm just saying, this is a pretty large step for the county, and our support might be very well appreciated.
Hey, Ray, this is Bill Poe. I plan on being there.
Awesome. Do me a favor.
Yes, sir.
Go over to Sutton's and get us orangeade so we can set up there and sip on that while they're doing their stuff.
Okay.
I'm just messing with you. I'm just messing with you, buddy.
Hey, I'll say, speaking of messing with it, if I'm there, y'all stay 6 foot away from me. How's that?
You got the cooties or something? No, straight up. I mean, I'm being serious here. Have you done tested positive for the Rona?
No, man, I don't leave my house.
Well, I don't hardly either. Well,
There's Rodney and little Rodney.
ain't she just a cutie?
Yeah, don't do that to her. She is not that. Yeah.
She is a cutie, just a sweetheart.
She is absolutely cute. Don't talk to Rodney.
Can you say hello?
Hey, baby, it's Uncle Ray. How you doing?
Can you say it's bedtime?
I do. Okay.
Folks, I've really enjoyed it tonight. I guess that brings I'll take care of our announcements, discussions, and so forth. And I'm sure Miss Tanya's tired. Do we have a motion at this point?
A motion to adjourn, Bill Poe.
Mr. Poe, have yourself an awesome evening, sir.
All right, you too, Ray.
Thank you, man.
I second that motion. Hello?
Sounds like we're adjourned then.
Good evening.
All right, thank y'all.
Good night, everyone.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Night. Bye.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Tanya.
Thank y'all.